Welcome to Creekside Online. Our mission is to reach the world with Jesus one person at a time, with Christ, community, and compassion. We are so glad that you are joining us today. If it is your very first time, please take a moment to click the link below and fill out an online Connect card. We would love for you to stay connected throughout the week and everywhere you go. And the best way to do that is through our church app. There you can watch additional messages and find resources to help you grow in your relationship with Christ. It's free and you can download it wherever you download your apps. For us, church is so much more than just a weekend experience. And we want you to know that there's a place here for you at Creekside. No matter where you're watching today, let's get ready for what God has in store for us.
All right. Welcome to those that are here as well as to our online community. It's so glad to have you with us. We're in this series, Uncharted, but really this whole series this year is from the book of Matthew. So hopefully you got your Bibles. You can turn to that first book in the New Testament, Matthew. We've been going through it in different ways and different places. And just so that you can see the consistency in Matthew, it's what? It's all about King Jesus. And it's about how we fall under his authority and how we do life well with him. So just a few housekeeping things before we dive into the matter of Matthew and what it's all about. One is today starts Discover Creekside. Discover Creekside starts today with Why Jesus. It's going to be at 10:30. I'm going to be in there. I hope to meet you there. So just come join us today, even if you didn't sign up. Would love to have you. And then secondly, we've been talking about the 3 services coming up August 10th. If you don't know about that, know about it. It's coming, and those times will be displayed, but we really need workers. We're going to need extra workers for that. So please think about signing up to serve and to come alongside and to really find partnership, to find fellowship and serving together. It's a wonderful thing. Also, coming up in a serving kind of aspect, that compassion that we talk about on the wall, is this Honduras trip in October. So check that out. Go to your novelty stickers right in front of you. Man, sign up. Let us know you're here, for one. Connect cards are there. But also, man, check out these ways of serving. And Honduras, the deadline for that is this next week on the 8th, so I hope you'll check that out. And listen, we also know that some of you are looking for relationships, you're looking for community. We're starting these 4x4 groups again. Our next series is going to be all about relationships. And so we've been looking at our relationship with God. We're going to be looking at our relationship with others and how to do that. Still in the book of Matthew 17. So I'm really excited about that. Please check that out. Now listen, I know many of you traveling this summer. Of course, some people venture out to go to Disney even in the summer. Man, it's hot. It's hot at times, but man, they'll go to Disney in the summer. And the funny thing, that when you go to Disney, there's all these 3D rides, right? Just lots of 3D rides. They take the 2-dimensional world on the screen and they move it to a 3-dimensional kind of thing. Or it may even be a ride like Spider-Man ride. And you got to put these glasses on. These glasses are this tool so that we can see life better as it's presented to us. They're this tool to take it out of the distorted dimension and into another dimension, from 2-dimension to 3-dimension. But I find this funny when I take my grandkids, for whatever reason, they're always wanting to take those glasses off. But what happens when you take the glasses off? It's messed up. You can't figure it out. I tried it myself. I had to try to be like them, But anyhow, it's all messed up. And so please just put them back on. It's going to be a whole different experience. It's going to be wonderful. And they do, and it is a different experience. Friends, what we have to talk to you about today is what Peter had to learn. Peter got the accolades last week, but he doesn't get them so much this week. Why? Because he had another dimension of glasses last week. He literally had like a 4-dimensional world going on. Beyond the physical 3-dimensional, he understood in the spiritual realm, Jesus, you are the Christ. Man, you are our long-awaited Messiah that for thousands of years we've been looking for you. But today, unfortunately, Peter takes off the 4D and he starts seeing in the 3D. And Jesus is quick to address that today. And friends, we've got to address that as well, because what happens in our lives? We start looking at things correctly and we can sense the Holy Spirit working with us, maybe in our marriage, but then we take those 4D glasses off and we go to 3D. And then what happens? Wonder what happens. Or maybe it's with our finances. Got a 4D thing on. I'm not in control. I'm going to not grip finances so tightly. I'm going to let loose of it a little bit and let God have control. It's going from 3D to 4D when we give him control. What about those relationships that are at work, or that climbing the ladder? I think I got to do it my way or the world's way. That's the 3D way, right? Stab somebody in the back, walk over somebody to get your goals. 3D living. What about that addiction? Addiction sometimes, again, is trying to live life in our own way, to survive in our own way, when Jesus says, please, I have the way. Take on these four-dimensional scopes and ways of thinking so that now you can do life so much better. You see, friends, how you see life distinguishes your life's purpose and destiny. It really does. We see this all the time. The way you see or don't see life literally structures your life. We have a saying for that, right? If life hands you lemons, make lemonade. And you see it all the time. Some people will have the same exact circumstance, painful circumstance happen to them, and it makes them better somehow. They're deeper, they're stronger. Man, it launched them into a new life. But then there's people with the same exact circumstances, and they just see it through a 3D realm, and it doesn't launch them at all. In fact, it's almost their undoing. Your viewpoint on life will shape how you invest money, how you invest your time, your talents, care of vital relationships, how you go about this life so that you don't have regrets in the end. And let's face it, all you can take to heaven is your relationships. That's it. And we live for so much else in this world, in this 3D world, when relationships are in the 4D realm. Our granddaughters got this last Disney trip, and we decided to take them for a nap in the afternoon, and then we put on princess dresses. You know, they were Elsa and Anna in the movie Frozen. And I didn't even know what was going to happen in the park once they became this new identity. They go into the park, and even the adults are suddenly bowing to them. And, oh, Princess Elsa, oh, Princess Anna, you know. And all of a sudden, our girls who had been whining in the heat, you know, suddenly they're standing a little taller. It's really amazing to me what a new identity, a new perspective on life can do even to a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And before long, I mean, literally, we went into the night, and I want you to see this picture because they're on this carousel. Somebody says a carousel of life is you know, it goes round and round, but also up and down, you know. That's really life. That's the abundant life I've been talking to you about. And isn't that a divine perspective, what happens? Once they understand their identity as princesses, really, they just grabbed hold of each other's hands because they're in this different world all of a sudden now. They're the best of friends. They're Elsa, they're Anna, man. And in our realm of existence under the king, if God is the king and Jesus is our prince, and he says he's our prince in Hebrews chapter 2 says that we're brothers and sisters with him now. Our new identity, I've said this often, is as a prince and as a princess in this life. And it should change our existence and how we react and how we see things, how we live our lives. We live them so much better in that way. But friends, in our 3D world, all the time we're just trying to grab onto it like it's a game to be conquered, that we could get our arms around. Kind of like Monopoly, you know? You ever played Monopoly and you're just dominating, man? You know, you're buying all the properties, and then one by one you're knocking people out, and they go to bed, and you're still playing because, man, you're just so excited that you're so rich and everything. And then you realize I'm the one that's left to clean up the whole mess and put everything back. And that's the way it is in life too. Man, if it's just about conquering and man, having the most toys or the most houses, the most properties, then you find yourself pretty lonely in the end. If life is a race to you, it's only about speed and efficiency, right? If you see life through the 3D glasses of being quick-witted, then it's all about having a strong tongue and a quick tongue. If you see life as a hospital, it'll be all about survival and all about comfort for you all the time. If life is like a marathon, you'll value endurance. But friends, we have to see ourselves as a child of the King, as a prince, as a princess, and start treating each other better, treating each other like royalty, and treating the Father like the King that He is. How's life going for you? Better than we deserve. Because we sinned. We didn't even deserve to be in the kingdom, but He has made us princes and princesses. So what's your 4D spiritual realm perspective of life? I hope it is beyond this realm. Because at the end, in verse 27 of our text today, chapter 16, verses 21 through 28, we're looking at verse 27. It says, "For the Son of Man is going to come in His glory with His Father and His angels, and will then repay every man according to his deeds." I didn't capitalize that. The NASB capitalized that. For effect, it's not because it was in the Greek, but they did it because they felt like that was something that we should reverence, that we should respect, that someday there is going to be a judgment for every way in which we live in this 3D world. There's going to be a judgment, and God is going to repay us according to our deeds. Jesus came to teach us the King's way of life. And there will be rewards based on how we do it. In our text, Peter, again, takes off his 4D glasses and he looks differently. And this is how it comes about. Verse 21. Jesus begins to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer. Jerusalem equaled suffering to Jesus. He looked at Jerusalem from probably the time he was born and knew he was going to die there. And he begins to explain this to his disciples. He's been sharing it from time to time. They're just not catching it. And he's going to suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. And hearing this, Peter took Jesus aside, begins to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." Now, if you don't read the next line, you might think Peter's doing a good and noble thing here, right? But Peter's way of seeing life needed major adjustment. I mean, major adjustment. Jesus, you can't suffer. You can't suffer at all, Peter thought, because life is about us. He lost perspective so quickly, didn't he? Went from the 4D realm to the 3D realm. You are the Christ, you're the Messiah, but he didn't get the Messiah in the spiritual realm. And Jesus quickly rebukes him. Why? Well, for one, disciples simply did not rebuke their rabbi in that society, but Peter in pride, perhaps he thinks now that since Jesus gave him acclamation and said, "Hey, you're Petros, and on this Petra, upon this solid rock of my confession, I'm going to build my church, and I'm going to give you the keys." He thinks now he's the associate professor, and now he can hear God the same way Jesus can hear God. He thinks he's something. And so he rebukes Jesus of all things. So many times we have a hard time seeing Jesus as someone who would rebuke somebody. But when we rebuke God, he has every right to rebuke us. And at this point, Peter, as well as the disciples, think the Messiah is to conquer the Romans, to restore the reign of the kingdom to Davidic times, when they were in charge of the world. And he and James and John, the inner three, would surely have power and prestige that they only dreamed of in their youth. Because, oh my goodness, have you seen Jesus heal? Have you seen him command the wind and the waves? Have you seen him just take a few loaves and fish and multiply them and feed thousands? I mean, Peter and John and James, they knew they had their earthly king And in their puny 3D perspective of life, they had nothing but a rebuke from Jesus. Peter's so short-sighted and deaf to Jesus' repeated warning that he would leave and die, that going to Jerusalem meant death, not being an earthly king. They were so deaf to that Jesus says to him, "Get behind me, Satan." Peter, you're Petros. And you just said something that's a Petra. That's a solid foundation. I'm giving you the keys because you've heard from God. And now in the next moment, almost the next breath, he's suddenly saying, "Get behind me, Satan. You were once on my side of the army, but now you're on the side of the evil one because you took off your 4D glasses. You're not seeing as I see, as your teacher and as your Lord and as your King." Friends, God's view on life must supersede the human view of how we do life. We must get God's view. That's why we say here quite often, the statistics are true. Go 1, 2, or 3 days with reading the scriptures and you kind of do okay, but your lifestyle doesn't change a whole lot. But the people that read scripture and they pray at least 4 days a week and more so, it's been proven across the United States and study after study, your life changes because you've put on 4D glasses now, not 3D glasses. Man, I'll tell you how quickly we can fall. And Peter is now representing Satan, a stumbling block to the mission that had been put in place thousands of years earlier since Adam and Eve lifted that fruit to their lips. Jesus was on a mission to save us. And here's the reality, folks. Let's let it break into the surface of our conscience today. Nearly all of us have unspoken expectations at one time or another. We have bought into the false idea that following Jesus is pretty much all about us, that discipleship is supposed to be pretty easy, and that suffering and sacrifice and serving and giving without holding back is always about somebody else. It's about the other girl, it's about the other guy, it's about the other woman, it's about the other family, it's about the other country. And then when something bad happens to us, we're confused. Verse 24, Jesus said to his disciples, "Don't be confused. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done." You see that? The rewards come later in another world. Live as if the rewards come later. What Jesus was saying has 4D implications. Man, they saw criminals on crosses quite often. The Romans often put rebellions down that way. But we, like Peter, in various moments of our life, may think, man, I've received Jesus. I've got his free grace. His love is all over me. Praise God. I don't have to do anything else. Let me just bask in his presence. And so today we don't get it. When troubles come, we back off of our passion for God's kingdom. When life gets tough or somebody ridicules our faith or way of life, we wonder, does God really love me? And we get disillusioned. And we've lost the deny self, take up your cross, and follow me way of 4D thinking. Friends, most of us would never dream of raising or parenting our own children in the way that many of us think about the Christian life. You know that? I'm going to be going up to Pennsylvania, just a quick trip, but I've not been at my dad's grave since he passed away 5 years ago, and I'm going to see the grave there. And it's kind of a sobering thing for me, really, because I see there my dad as Charles Sr. and his dad as Charles Peterman too. So I got all these tombstones with Charles Peterman on them, you know. A little sobering, if you know what I mean. But let me tell you something. I love my dad. I love the way he raised me. If somebody had said to my dad, "Oh, you got your Charles Jr., man, this is so awesome. And let me talk to him." And they started talking to me. "Oh, son, you got the greatest father, man. He's going to give you candy all the time. You're going to be home. You're just going to be basking in this warmth of security all the time. Life is going to be so easy for you. It's going to be so wonderful because, man, you're a child of this great guy." My dad would have given him a good size 12. You know what he'd have done? So he says, "No, that's not the way I'm raising my kid. My kid is going to go with me, man. As soon as he gets off the bus, he's going to go with me to carpentry. And I'm going to teach him the ways of steel and foundry. And I'm going to also teach him to be a hunter. And by the way, we're going to go to church 3 times a week, Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday. And by the way, I'm going to show him what it is to give and to sacrifice like Jesus because I'm following Jesus. I want him to follow Jesus with me so he can spend eternity with me. And by the way, yeah, it's going to be painful, and he's going to cry some. It's not going to be all comfort all the time." But that's not how we live our Christian life, thinking our Father's like that. Oh, my goodness. What has he done to us to have to suffer like this? Jesus calls us to be like him. And to be like him is to be ready to suffer and to sacrifice for his kingdom. You can see why Peter's beginning argument with Jesus causes Jesus so much frustration and anger, because Christ without sacrifice and self-denial is not Christ. It's the Antichrist. So be careful what religion you're following if all its teaching is ease and sweetness. It's a false Messiah or an idol of our own minds and culture, friends. And so many are following a Messiah of their own making. It's why so many women divorcing men and men divorcing women, a host of other evils tearing down our nation, literally. Man, we've lost our loving minds in the good old US of A of worshiping comfort and not Christ. Men and women forgetting to row against society's current of selfishness. And so we continue to assert ourselves, look out for number one, and we think somehow that's going to make relationships work. And as a result, I hear men being apathetic and joking about how they're treating their wives, not leading out spiritually, not truly sacrificing for that spouse who gave up her name to take on your name. You're not sacrificing for her. You're not thinking, how can I lift her up? How can I make sure that my list of things that I serve her is longer than the list of she serving me? And don't you women start thinking on your high horse just yet. I see women not respecting their husbands and trying to dominate and rule, just as was the curse in the garden. And it was projected. You're going to try to rule over him. No, that's not your role. He's supposed to be under Christ and under God, and you're going to be under him. And when he doesn't do it perfectly, you look at Jesus over his shoulder. You serve, you surrender to Christ as unto Christ, Ephesians 5 says. We wonder why the Christian realm of divorces and problems in relationships is equal to the world and how they're living. Because we as Christians have not started to live selfless lives. It's all about us still when we come to Christ. And that's a distorted view of grace, friends. That's abusing the grace that God has given us. Jesus' point is pretty clear. If you want to be a Christ follower, you see life how he sees it. Then you put to death yourself. I want to see men, great gatherings of men here, storming the castles of Hades in other men's minds, the gates that they put up. Oh, it's got to be about me. It's got to be me. No, that's Satan's kingdom right there. We need to storm that gate, take down those strongholds, those lies going on. I would love to see women's ministry doing the same thing, preaching the truth of the gospel. The good news of Jesus Christ, every word that he says, and seeing it as true life. We're living for another realm. 4D realm. You ready for this? From a Christian perspective, life is a means of serving others and sacrificing for others in order to do God's will. In the process, true, genuine life is found both now and eternity. But in our culture, we're pretty much told the complete opposite. And in Peter's mind, Satan was feeding him the common human lie. You stay in control. It's about power. It's about comfort at all costs. And Peter, of all things, boldly rebukes God. But don't get on your high horse, because we do that all the time too. People try to rebuke God because things are not going their way. So it's why in conversion I often say to people, he's got to be your king. Is he your king? Is he in the driver's seat? Is he really leader and Lord of your life? He's got to be in that driver's seat, that passenger seat, that back, not the back seat of your car, not the passenger seat. Make sure that he's in the driver's seat all the time. Not some of the time, all the time. Because a lot of people find Jesus handy to have in the car as long as he's just their ride-along buddy. Because something may come up where he is required for his services, right? They still see Jesus as, Jesus, I have a health problem and I need some help. Or there's going to be problems at work and I'd like for it to be different. So Jesus, could you step in there and straighten that other person out? Or I'm feeling a little bit sad. I would like some of your hope, Jesus. Or hey, step into part of the driver's seat right now because I'm facing death one day and I want to make sure that I'm getting to heaven. I want you in the car, but I'm not sure I want you driving yet. You remember that old song, Jesus, Take the Wheel? That's true. But we give it to him for a little bit, and then we want to take it back. And a lot of these prayers aren't exactly bad in what we're asking. We're asking for Jesus to come along, but it's bad if we still think we're in charge, and we can just shove him in the seat or the back seat whenever we want. Friends, if Jesus is driving, I'm not in charge of my life anymore. If he's driving, I'm not in charge of my wallet anymore. I'm not in charge of conventional ways I feel like relating with people. If I put him in control, there's no longer a matter of giving some money now and then when I'm feeling generous or when more of it's coming into my life. Now it's his wallet. It's something scary, right? If you're not working that faith muscle. My life got so much easier this past month. We challenged you all to put it in the giving fund. My wife and I put, several there, and that giving fund, it's earning interest for, it's just an amazing thing. Not only does it help us and the giving thing, the tax deduction, but it helps it. But listen, that took years for me. I acknowledge it took years for me to realize that letting go is the beauty. Letting go of that wallet is just a beauty in life of trusting God and putting him in the driver's seat. Man, if Jesus is driving, I'm not in charge of my ego anymore. I no longer have the right to satisfy every self-centered ambition. No, it's his agenda. It's his life. Now I'm not in charge of my mouth anymore. I don't get to gossip. I don't get to deceive. I don't get to rage. I don't get to cuss. I don't get to intimidate and manipulate my way anymore. I get out of the driver's seat and stop trying to grab the wheel and take control. I'm living by the Spirit. I'm living by the 4D world, not the 3D world anymore. Some of us are wondering why the problems are going on in life, why we're wrecking the car all the time. It's kind of like when I was trying to teach my sister how to drive, and she was headed right for somebody else's lawn, and I tried to take the wheel. But when I tried to take the wheel, what she did? She tried to take it harder. And she was stepping on the gas, and I'm like, we're going to be in this person's living room. How am I going to explain this to my dad? And she took it harder, and I just had to end up yelling at her, please let me have the wheel. We still ended up partly in the yard. That's why Jesus doesn't force his way into your life to straighten things out. Because basically he's saying, when are you going to let go of the wheel? So that I can lead you to the best harbor, the best way of driving. If I give him the wheel, I'm fully engaged in heaven's four-dimensional ways. In fact, I'm more alive than ever before. But it's not my life anymore. It's his life. And Peter failed. He failed every time that he tried to do it his way. But by the end of his life, he was crucified upside down with his wife. Matthew 16:25, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. Now we're out of the 3D realm of existence. We're living a 4D kingdom perspective. And there's a chance for a divine dance with God when we're doing that, when we live this verse in verse 25. On the carousel of life, there's a chance for real embraces and hugs and a new prince and princess way of thinking. This life, if it's all we have, we're to be pitied, most of men. But we live the resurrection life. So many of us go around thinking, man, I better live it up. I better get all the gusto I can right now. Carpe diem, man, seize the day. And we try to find a very temporary way of doing life. Matthew 16:26, the very next verse, Jesus asks the question, what good it will be for a man if he gains the whole world, yet forfeits his soul? So many live like there's nothing beyond this life. You remember Muhammad Ali? You remember me telling you before, a reporter came to his barn where he had all his trophies and everything, and now they're covered with bird doo-doo. And Muhammad Ali said, man, I had the world and it was nothing. Look now. Now, in Muhammad Ali's defense, he did figure out that life was empty when it was all about himself, and he began his philanthropy thing before he died. But take it from somebody else who had the world, literally. Man, it was nothing, he said. Serving self is nothing. A 3D perspective is nothing. When it's only about wealth and success and comfort and pleasure, our consumer culture often impacts the way we look at God and his church. In the same way, it's like choosing a family doctor or even a grocery store. Do they have what I want? What are the benefits? What's in it for me? Yet Jesus made it clear that being a part of his family means, what does God want me to do? How can I best serve? Where should I live? And who should I be? That's most important in this circumstance to most effectively fulfill Jesus' mission on earth. I love people that when they move, they go and they find the best church where they can serve first, because they want to be close to that church, so they want to be in close proximity to that church so they can serve, because that's a kingdom mindset. I love those people. Friend, listen, church, Christianity is not like joining a country club. It's really more like signing up for the military. We're signing up. We got a wonderful sergeant, sheriff in St. John's. I met him. Man, that guy's all about serving, the lowliest of the low. It's awesome. But I'm told in those kind of branches and stuff, it's not about, hey, you do what you want to do. If the sergeant says, hey, get out of bed right now. If the sergeant says, clean the latrine. If the sergeant says, march, then you march. And that truly is what the kingdom of heaven is about. It's not because he's some tyrant, some terrible sergeant. Jesus is king, and he's a good king. He laid his life down for us. When you make that commitment, you turn your agenda over to him. And loss is gain. And loss begins with surrender. Surrender. How do you like that for a slogan in life? Surrender. There's a lot of slogans around that people live by, right? We get caught up in slogans. Have a Coke and a what? Just do it. Pop, pop, fizz, fizz. Y'all are scaring me. America drives on. Oh, don't criticize that one, Chuck. Man, that was my go-to today. How about this slogan that Jesus has? Come and die. That's all he was saying to the disciples. Come with me and die. Oh my, that's so hard for us, because we love our crosses that we wear around our necks, and we put them up as jewelry and as ornaments and art everywhere. But as Max Lucado points out, man, in Jesus' day, the cross was a hideous, despising thing. It was not an object of beauty, but an instrument of death. It was as horrible a symbol to the first century Jews as the guillotine was during the French Revolution, or as a noose was during the shameful days of lynching in our country. Take up your cross and follow me didn't sound artistic or poetic to Jesus. They saw people on crosses all the time, suffering unimaginable deaths. It was unimaginable to them. And maybe that is to you too today. I get it. But if somebody didn't tell you about this part of the gospel, they were preaching not the whole gospel, just part of it. Take up your death, carry it with you. Expect that in the end of your life, it may be troubling and painful and hard. As one pastor said, this life doesn't come from simply wearing a cross. It comes from bearing a cross. Somebody, some life, some self has to die. King's Pride Hammond, when I went to Ghana, Africa, said a lot of missionaries, he says, you're lucky. A lot of missionaries 30, 40 years ago would send their coffins, all their belongings in their coffin to Ghana first because they knew they weren't going to make it out. That was saying, I'm all in for you, Jesus, in a big way. Somebody chided me this last week about how many times I mentioned hell last week. Well, it's in the passage in chapter 16, and millions of people are selling their souls to the devil, a little here, a little there, one day at a time, worshiping the wrong things. Misguided dreams, selfish goals, stubborn pursuits in the wrong direction. But Christ as King tears those kind of gates and thinking down. Listen to Jesus' words again. Deny yourself, take up your cross, follow me. Die to live is what he's saying. I've said this before. It's a paradox. Sounds like two opposite things that don't make sense. How could it be die to live? But Jesus says do it. Do it in your marriage. Do it in your work relationships. Die to live. Begin sacrificing for others. It's not just a paradox, but it's a paradigm. You know the old Stephen Covey thing where you see the old witch-looking lady and then you look at it differently and suddenly you see a beautiful young woman. Jesus is saying, take off the glasses that you have for this world. Man, today repent and begin thinking with a 4D type of existence. The rewards are there out in the future, not here. In the here and now, in the 3D life. When I planned this sermon a year ago, I wondered what Jesus was asking me to do as well as all of you. And so I wrote down, the next step I will take is to humbly submit to even the words of Jesus that make us, or me, uncomfortable and obey them. We love all of Jesus' nice-sounding words, but what about these words? I want to close with a story about a girl named Jenny. I'm not talking about the Jenny from Forrest Gump. Jenny! I'm talking about a little girl named Jenny, soft-spoken 5-year-old. Jenny was once going to the dollar store and she saw these toy pearls, and she had to have those pearls, and they were $1.50. And so mom says it's not going to break the bank, and I'm going to teach her a little bit. I'll have her do a little bit around the house, give her a dime a day, have her earn those things. Jenny loved those pearls, man. They made her feel dressed up and grown up. She wore them everywhere, in Sunday school, kindergarten, and even to bed. And the only time she took them off was when she went swimming or took a bath. And while most toys lose their appeal pretty quick with a 5-year-old, they didn't for Jenny. Man, she just never took them off. She loved them more than anything. And that's why it was so hard the night that Daddy was tucking her into bed. And he said, Jenny, do you love me? And she said, oh, Daddy, you know I love you. And he said, well, then give me your pearls. Jenny said, Daddy, not my pearls. You can have the princess. You can have the white horse with the pink tail. Remember, you gave me her last summer. She's my favorite horse, but you can have her, but not my pearls, Daddy. That's okay, honey. Daddy loves you. Good night. He gave her a kiss, turned out the light. About a week later, after reading a bedtime story, he again said, Jenny, do you love me? Yes, Daddy, you know I love you. I always show you I love you. Well, then give me your pearls. He said, Daddy, not my pearls. You can have my baby doll, the brand new one I got for my birthday. She's so beautiful. Or you can have that unicorn horse, the yellow blanket that matches the pajamas. That's okay, honey. Sleep tight. I love you. Another kiss, and he quietly left the room. A few nights later, when her dad came in and said goodnight, Jenny was sitting cross-legged on the bed, and her chin was quivering, a tear coming down her cheek. Jenny, what is it? What's the matter? Daddy said. Jenny lifted her hand to her daddy with quivering lips. She said, here, Daddy, these are for you. As Jenny's dad took the dollar store necklace with one hand, he reached in his pocket with the other hand and took out the blue velvet jewelry box, a box he'd carried upstairs for the last 3 weeks. And inside the box was a strand of real pearls. Hardly able to believe her eyes, Jenny stared at them for a moment. Then she jumped into her daddy's arms. Now listen, friends, listen. And in this up and down, roundabout carousel of life, her dad and her had a 4D embrace. She had to turn loose of the cheap dollar store substitute imitation so that her dad could give her genuine treasure. But listen, the genuine treasure was not the pearls. No, the true treasure in her life was learning trust in a good father and his every word. That's the true treasure of life. Will you learn to trust God and his every word, even when it seems not to make sense? Will you put on the 4D spiritual glasses of life, trust Jesus' every words, and go to your Jerusalem? Because you're not getting the glorious heavenly story if you're only living the 3D kind of life. I figured that sermon was a good way to prepare for communion, because many of us need to die to something right now as we get ready to take communion. This is the Lord's Supper. It was to remind us of his sacrifice, his life, his mission, so we would live the same way. He gave us his blood. Now, that's a representation of his blood, a blood that saves us, but a blood that's also an example for us. He gave us also his body to remind us of what Romans 12 says, man. We are to be living sacrifices for Jesus, for God and his kingdom. You know, AA and Celebrate Recovery have understood the power of trusting Jesus' words. Step one, they say, we realize we're powerless. Our lives are unmanageable. When I'm driving my life, I'm going to mess it up. Step two is I came to believe a power greater than myself, that it could restore me. I really believed it. And step three is I came and I realized this is the ticket. I made a conscious decision to turn my will and life over to the care of God. Have you made that decision? A decision of true surrender to the care of God. Because we think of that word surrender as defeat or perhaps loss, but it turns out to be the only way to win. The only way to victory, the only way to life, not just with alcohol, but with addictions, with habits, with brokenness, with relationships, with sin. Surrender is the only way to life. Will you surrender your self ways of doing life, even today? Die to live. Put on the 4D glasses. Find true life.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. We hope the message you just listened to had an impact on you. Make sure to stay connected with us through the week online at creeksidechristian.com and on Facebook and Instagram at Creekside Christian Church. We believe God has something unique to say to you, and our hope is that you feel his love stronger today than ever before. We love you, and we'll see you next time.